Hey everybody, welcome back to Jeff Bowles Central. Gonna do another mental health video for you today. I'll try to do these about once a month at least. And so today I wanted to talk specifically about schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, to be more precise. Schizoaffective disorder is what I have. That's my diagnosis, my primary diagnosis. And I kind of was going through my catalog of mental health videos that I've done over the years. And I kind of saw that I haven't really done anything in a really long time specifically dealing with schizoaffective disorder. I try to make these videos for a wide gamut of folks out there, people who suffer all sorts of different mental health issues, people who care for people who suffer mental health issues. But today we're going to talk about schizoaffective. Before I get rolling on that, before I talk about what it is and, kind of an overview and what to look for, even if you're worried that you're suffering from it or someone I just want to let you know, I make these videos once a month or so. I make video game videos as well. I make music videos. So if you want to check out the channel, head on over, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Okay. So what is schizoaffective disorder? If it sounds familiar, if it sounds like schizophrenia, that's because it is basically that. It's in the same type. It's a schizotypal. It's in the same family as schizophrenia. And so it's schizophrenia with a mood component. So mine is the bipolar type, but there's also the depressive type. Those are the two main types. And so bipolar, we're going to define some stuff here. Bipolar, if you don't know, is periods of kind of a manic mania, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy, sleeplessness, strange behavior, but we'll get there. And then periods of severe depression. That's what bipolar is. So I have schizophrenia with bipolar. So that's schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. Let me define schizophrenia, because frankly, a lot of people use that word schizophrenia to describe a lot of different things that it just does not even come close to describing. So schizophrenia is marked by hallucinations and delusions, by jumbled thought and speech, by disorganized everything. It's marked by social issues, social dysfunction, dysfunction at work or school. It's marked by physical disheveledness, disorderedness, as you can see by the tape on my glasses. So let's tackle those one at a time. Let's just talk about them and be kind of open and blunt about it so that you can kind of get an understanding of what it's like on the inside. So hallucinations are a wide thing, a wide gamut again. A person can hallucinate any number of things, but the common thing is hearing voices and seeing things that couldn't possibly be real, but to you it seems very real, very real. They also have olfactory, your sense of smelling. You can smell stuff that isn't there. That happens to me a lot. You can even feel things on your skin or on your body or wherever that aren't there. That happens to me a lot. So that's all kind of the clinical definition. But in practical terms, I suffered my psychosis about 8 years ago. And I've documented this elsewhere. And I basically caused a car incident with my wife, where my wife was hurt very badly, very terribly. And I really don't like to go back to that place very often, but I do for the purposes of the video. But long story short, I was put in jail for a couple days. And then I had to go into the mental health facility for a couple weeks because they kind of realized that's really where I should be. And there were a lot of consequences after that. It's a thing. Like, this is a thing that can really break up your life. And so some of the things I saw and heard were just very, very strange. And even to this day, when I recollect them, they seem very, very real to me. Some of the things that I hear all the time, the voices tend to be, for me, aggressive a lot of the time, demeaning a lot of the time. It's not super pleasant. And the thing is I've been in recovery now for about 8 years, so I have a little bit of distance from the worst of it. So I have a little bit of perspective too, that people who are in the midst of it really don't have so much. If you tried to talk sense to me back then, it just wouldn't have gone anywhere. And then so that's the hallucinations. Delusions, that's the second major factor, or the second major bullet point. Delusions is much like hallucinations, seeing things that aren't real or hearing things that aren't real. Delusions are believing things that are not true, that couldn't possibly be true, couldn't possibly be real. And again, that's a huge splay of things. For instance, I was just thinking about this earlier. I was watching a football game during the middle of it, and I convinced myself that I could predict the next play. And that it didn't shake. Like, even when it didn't turn out to be true exactly, the voices told me, I believed, and that's how that happened that day. So it's like that, man. It's like a pile-on of just, you tend to believe whatever your senses feed you. And so I just don't even know that there's much room in there for seeing things clearly in the midst of it. There's a lot of room for recovery, and that's really ultimately the good news. But the thing about delusions is you can't shake someone out of them very easily. So you'll have to combat them if you are someone who must care for someone with schizoaffective disorder. The other things, the other major definitions and the other major factors, I mentioned disorganized speech, disorganized thinking. There's kind of a word salad, they call it, where a person will start just kind of talking nonsense, really, and then just the thinking and the words kind of go together on that one. It just comes out of a jumble. You'll hear people say a lot of the time, people in the midst of a psychosis, I'm Jesus come back to earth, or I'm George Washington reincarnated, or the government is tapping into my thoughts through my tooth, or things like that. It's peculiar, and you can imagine that being on the inside of that is it's intense, but it's also sometimes it just seems it's confusing to me even now to try to think about. I don't know if I can be as helpful about that as I thought I could, because it's still confusing. Like, the way I remember it, it feels very intense. It feels very strange, but it also feels almost like it ought to be that way, if that makes sense, through a psychosis. Then you also have things, like I said, the physical appearance, even hygiene. I've had problems with that. Again, I have the glasses here to prove that. Not because I don't want to get new glasses, because I don't think about it. I just don't have the headspace to go out and get new glasses. That's how that works, usually, for me anyway. So those are kind of some of the symptoms. In practical application, it means a lot of compromises in your life. You're probably, as a sufferer of schizoaffective disorder, you're probably going to have issues with people, friends, family, teachers, co-workers, bosses. You may not be able to function at a job or at school, period. So while I maintain this channel and I make these videos and I make music and I write too, I must do it at a much more relaxed and friendly pace and stress-free pace than kind of like a 9-to-5 job, or if I ever decided to go back to school for any reason. You know, I can't hold a job. I've tried, and it's kind of a disaster for everybody involved. And so I'm not able to work. I'm on disability. And that's just me, but I know that a lot of people who suffer from this can work and can go to school, and though it's a struggle, they make it happen. And I've said this before, like I have so much respect for people who can get on with life in ways that I really I can't. You know, you might notice also that a lot of people with this disorder have trouble earning or holding on to money. I have issues with that as well, the holding on. But you know, the earning is probably more central, and I don't do much of that anymore. And then, you know, you might also find things like driving are a bit of an issue for some of us, just because we can be a danger on the road, or we might get confused or something like that. That's a possibility. That's not everybody, but that's something I've had to deal with in the past. So, you know, the main thing that it can affect, though, is your relationships. You might lose people over this if you develop some of these symptoms, or if you've had them your whole life. You might find that people have difficulty hanging in there with you, or that you kind of drive them away, which is kind of the more accurate way of putting that. Even family, even spouses and things like that, sometimes they'll have to pull away because it's just very, very difficult to deal with sometimes. It really is. It's troubling. My beautiful wife, Carrie, who's been on my channel a few times, she'll probably be on again in the future. She's amazing. She's incredible. She's the best human being I've ever known, really. And she hangs in there with me, and she deals with it, and she helps me manage it in any way that she really can. And she struggles with it just as much as I do, and it stresses her out. It's asking someone to bear your very large burden with you, that's my dog, if you heard that, kind of groaning in her sleep. And it's tough for her, just as it's tough for me. So if you do manage to have people stick with you, God bless you, man. God bless them. Yeah. And so that's kind of it, man. That's kind of what it is. And, you know, I developed this in my early 30s, which is pretty rare-ish. Usually it's in your teens and 20s. And the worst of it probably lasted, maybe a couple years, maybe a year. And then the almost the decade since this happened for me in 2016, it's been a very, very slow, very arduous, very sometimes disturbing road to recovery. I've had a lot of counseling. I take medication. I do take medication. I know that a lot of people have issues with medication, and I totally get all those reasons. I'm not advocating one way or another, but I know that they help me. I know that, you know, for instance, I'm on a pretty good streak right now with my meds. I've been taking them every single day like clockwork for a while. When I fall off, it usually causes a few issues for me and you know, my family. So that's what I'll say about meds. I also know that a lot of people, because I get comments about this, and I get this too, believe it to be a spiritual malady, a spiritual dysfunction. And I understand those reasons as well. And I'm not unsympathetic to that either, because I'm kind of a spiritual guy. I'm kind of a religious guy myself. I just know that, practically speaking, the best way to fight this, maybe not the best way, but the most practical, the most easy to access way to fight this is in practical terms, not just through some kind of spiritual direction or spiritual help or whatever. But if that's something that interests you, or something that you would find efficacious, not just the more clinical side of things, the therapy, the meds, the treatments, and everything like that, certainly pursue that in a safe way, in a supportive way. And so, you know, I had to rehabilitate a lot of things too. I like I said, I'm a writer. I had to relearn how to write. I write music as well. I had to relearn sort of how to do that. It's not that I forgot. It's more like I couldn't maintain the thought stream or the discipline to be able to sit down and write a song, let alone an album's worth of songs. Similarly, if I want to write a book, I can only do so many words per day. About 20 minutes of writing a day, because anything super longer than that it'll just fry me out. I can't sustain that long, and I can't deal with the stress. Stress is a big thing with schizoaffective disorder, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of us kind of, for lack of a better term, drop out of society, drop out of jobs, and drop out of friendships and stuff, because stress exacerbates it. Not surprisingly, drugs and alcohol exacerbate it. So if you are a sufferer, you may think about avoiding that. But the problem with that is that a lot of us do use substances to help us cope. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's definitely a double-edged sword. And these are all awareness things. These are all things to maybe help you. And so if you are wondering if you might be having symptoms, they should, ow, gosh, no barking. They should be pretty clear. It should be pretty clear to you that, yes, I am suffering from this, but it may not be. Having seen a video like this, or Googled it and gotten research done, Mayo Clinic or any other reputable medical source, something like that, that'll make you more aware of what's happening, or what you could be dealing with, or what you might deal with in the future. But look, when this happened to me, my wife and I were totally blindsided. It developed slowly enough that when it was a problem, we just didn't know what it was. We didn't see it coming, and the bad things happened. Like I said, I injured her in a car incident, and I could go into the details of how that happened, but I prefer not to, just because it takes me to a bad headspace a lot of the time. But if you want to know, they're out there, man. They're in my videos in the past. They're in my mental health videos. And so it might be more helpful if you have someone on the outside looking in, telling you, hey, you need to go in. And nobody can make a person go in. So it might be a little bit of a tricky situation. But look, it's this stuff: hallucinations, delusions, weird thought or speech, apparent behavior, apparent. I'm aberrant. I keep thinking it's abhorrent. Not the right word. Disheveled look, disheveled speech, all that stuff. And it won't be subtle. I don't want to say that universally, especially at the beginning when things are starting to develop. It could be very subtle. Changes in behavior. Having the bipolar type means that I kind of go up and down too, on top of it. So it can be a little misleading at times. Silly dog. So that's it. That's it. If you see someone or know someone who's demonstrating some of this stuff and you're getting a little worried about them, talk to them. Try to get them to see some stuff, but not forcefully, and not in a way that really It's a negotiation. Be sensitive. And if you're suffering from it, try to listen. Just try to listen. Okay? Because this is a thing that is not really something you ought to play around with too terribly much, because it can get dangerous. Now, statistically speaking, and this is something that most people don't know, though schizophrenic people can cause injury and can be kind of not necessarily violent but aggressive at times because of what they're going through, what's going on in their head. It's very confusing. You got to remember that it's very intense. They can cause people harm. However, statistically speaking, most of the time, if harm is done in a situation involving a schizophrenic person, the harm is being done to them. We're victims of assault a lot. And that's simply because we're vulnerable. A lot of us are very, some of us are homeless, frankly. Some of us haven't got a home. And that makes us, all of that makes us susceptible to violence and all sorts of stuff. So either way, you owe it to yourself to listen. Open your ears, open your mind as well as you can, listen, and really think about getting some treatment, getting some help of some form. Like I said, you could even go to your church if you're into that, or your temple, your mosque, your Buddhist meditation retreat. I don't know. As long as it's good stuff. As long as it's good stuff and it's helpful, you can do that. You can seek out therapy. That's really, really good. Counseling is very helpful, very efficacious. Medication, as I said, there's other forms of treatment that they have as well, but not many. Mostly nowadays it's counseling and therapy and medication. And don't wait too long. Seek treatment, seek help. Okay, that's my disclaimer. I hope that was helpful. I hope that was something that can benefit everybody out there. Be well. Be well. I hope everybody's doing okay this afternoon. We're almost to October, which is like my favorite month of the year. So yeah, like I said, check out the channel, like and subscribe and all that stuff. Hit the notification bell if you're so inclined, so you can stay updated on all my stuff here on Jeff Bulls Central. I hope you're okay out there. I hope you're well. This stuff puts me in mind of days where I wasn't so good as I am today. So check out next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
I know you know me, running around, low and I'm meant to be. Control you, control me. In our past lives, we were born to be.